Lisa had been working at the diner for almost 3 years now, and she thought she'd seen everything. Drunk customers, marriage proposals, breakups, even a small kitchen fire once. But nothing could have prepared her for what was about to happen on that quiet Tuesday evening. It was almost 9 o'clock, and the diner was nearly empty. Just old Mr. Peterson in the corner booth reading his newspaper like he did every night, and Lisa's 7-year-old daughter Amy sitting at the back table doing her homework. Amy always came to the diner after school because Lisa couldn't afford a babysitter. The little girl had gotten used to doing her homework surrounded by the smell of coffee and French fries. Lisa was wiping down the counter, thinking about how she needed to pay the electric bill tomorrow. When the bell above the door chimed, she looked up with her usual smile, ready to greet whoever walked in. But her smile faded when she saw the man who entered. He was tall, maybe in his mid-30s, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. But what caught her attention was the little boy in his arms. The child couldn't have been more than 5 years old, and he was crying softly into the man's shoulder. His small hands clutched a worn stuffed rabbit, and even from across the room, Lisa could see the tear tracks on his face. The man looked around quickly, his eyes sharp and alert. There was something about the way he moved that reminded Lisa of soldiers she'd seen in movies. Careful, aware of everything around him. "Can I help you?" Lisa asked, her voice uncertain. Something felt off about this situation. Before the man could answer, the door burst open again. 3 men in dark suits rushed in, and Lisa's heart started pounding. The first man immediately moved, positioning himself so his body was between the suited men and the child he was holding. "That's far enough," the man said. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. The kind of voice that made you stop and listen. Amy looked up from her homework, her eyes going wide. Lisa's first instinct was to run to her daughter, but she was frozen behind the counter trying to understand what was happening. "We're here for the boy," one of the suited men said. He was older than the others, with gray hair at his temples. "Hand him over and nobody needs to get hurt." The child in the man's arms whimpered and buried his face deeper into his protector's shoulder. The man holding him adjusted his grip, gentle with the child, but his eyes never leaving the 3 men in front of him. "I don't think so," he said quietly. "You want to show me some identification first? Maybe explain who you are and why you think you have any right to this child?" The gray-haired man reached into his jacket, and Lisa felt her breath catch. But he pulled out a wallet, flipping it open to show some kind of official-looking document. From where Lisa stood, she couldn't make out the details. "We're authorized to take custody of the child," the man said. "His mother is unfit. We're from Family Services." Something about the way he said it didn't ring true. Lisa had dealt with social workers before, back when Amy's father left and she'd struggled to make ends meet. They didn't travel in groups of 3 wearing expensive suits. They didn't burst into places like they were raiding them. The man holding the child must have thought the same thing because he shook his head. "Family Services doesn't work this way. You've got 10 seconds to leave before I call the police." "You don't want to do that," another suited man said, stepping forward. He was younger, with a scar across his cheek. "Just give us the kid and we'll be on our way." Amy's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Mommy, are they bad guys?" Every head in the diner turned to look at the little girl sitting at the back table. She had put down her pencil and was staring at the scene with wide, frightened eyes. But there was something else in her expression, too. Curiosity. The same look she got when she asked Lisa questions about how the world worked. Lisa found her voice. "Amy, honey, stay right there, okay? Don't move." The man holding the child glanced at Amy for just a second, and something softened in his face. Then his expression hardened again as he looked back at the suited men. "Ma'am," he called to Lisa, still not taking his eyes off the 3 men. "I need you to call 911 right now. Tell them we have a situation at the diner and we need police here immediately." Lisa's hands were shaking as she reached for the phone under the counter. The gray-haired man took another step forward. "You don't want to do that," he said again. "Think about your daughter. Think about this nice little business. It would be a shame if something happened. That was a threat. A clear, unmistakable threat, and it was directed at Amy." Something changed in the man holding the child. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the diner. "Did you just threaten a child?" he asked. "Did you really just do that?" He carefully set the little boy down behind him, positioning him near the booth where Mr. Peterson was sitting. The old man had put down his newspaper and was watching everything with alert eyes. "Sir," the man said to Mr. Peterson, "I need you to keep an eye on this boy for just a minute." "Can you do that?" Mr. Peterson nodded, and the little boy scrambled into the booth beside him, still clutching his rabbit. Now free, the man faced the suited men fully. He rolled his shoulders once, and Lisa saw the three men exchange glances. They were suddenly less confident. "Last chance," the man said. "Walk out that door right now and we'll pretend this never happened." The man with the scar made a move toward the booth where the child was hiding. He didn't make it 2 steps. Lisa had been in enough bar fights at the diner to know what a punch looked like. But she'd never seen anyone move like this man did. He was fast, so fast she almost couldn't follow it. 1 second the scarred man was walking forward, the next he was on the floor gasping for air. The other 2 men rushed forward, and the diner erupted into chaos. Lisa grabbed the phone with shaking hands and dialed 911, her voice barely steady as she told the operator they needed help immediately. Amy had climbed up to stand in the booth, watching everything with huge eyes. "Mommy, he's protecting the little boy," she called out. She was right. Despite being outnumbered, despite the violence happening around him, the man never let any of the suited men get close to the booth where the child was hidden. He moved with precision, blocking, dodging, always keeping himself between the threat and the little boy. Mr. Peterson had put his arm around the child, shielding him with his body. The little boy had his face hidden against the old man's side, his stuffed rabbit squeezed tight. It was over in less than a minute. All 3 suited men were on the floor, groaning. The man stood over them, barely breathing hard, his eyes still alert and watching. "Mommy," Amy whispered, her voice full of awe. "He's like a superhero." The sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder as police cars approached. The man didn't relax until the first officers came through the door. Then and only then did he lower his guard. He immediately went to the booth, kneeling down beside the little boy. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "It's okay now. You're safe. I've got you." The child threw his arms around the man's neck, crying again, but this time in relief. The man picked him up, holding him close, murmuring quiet reassurances. Lisa stood behind the counter, her heart still racing, watching as police officers flooded into her diner. She looked at Amy, who was still standing in the booth, her homework forgotten. "Are they bad guys, Daddy?" Amy had asked. Looking at the 3 men in suits now being handcuffed by police, Lisa was pretty sure she knew the answer. But what she didn't know was who the man protecting the child really was, and why anyone would want to kidnap a little boy badly enough to threaten a waitress and her daughter. As one officer began taking statements and another checked on the suited men, Lisa caught the eye of the man still holding the child. He gave her a small nod, a silent thank you for calling the police, and Lisa knew somehow that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than a simple Tuesday night at the diner. Part 2. The police had been at the diner for over an hour now. Lisa had given her statement 3 times to 3 different officers, and Amy had fallen asleep in the booth, exhausted from all the excitement. The 3 suited men had been taken away in handcuffs, still refusing to answer questions about who they were or why they wanted the child. The man who had protected the little boy sat at the counter now, the child asleep in his lap. He'd been patient with the police, answering every question, and Lisa had finally learned his name. David Chen, former military, now working as a private bodyguard. The little boy's name was Oliver, and he was the son of someone very important. David hadn't said who, just that the child's mother was on her way and she would explain everything. Detective Rodriguez arrived just as Mr. Peterson was finally leaving. The old man had given his statement and patted David on the shoulder before heading out into the night. "You did good, son," he'd said. "Real good." The detective was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She looked at the scene, looked at David, then at Lisa. "Okay," she said. "Someone want to tell me what really happened here?" David shifted the sleeping child in his arms and began to explain. He'd been working as Oliver's personal bodyguard for 2 months. The boy's mother, Victoria Crane, was the CEO of Crane Industries, one of the biggest technology companies in T.A. City. She was also in the middle of a nasty custody battle. Oliver's father had died 2 years ago in a car accident. His family, particularly his brother Richard, had never approved of Victoria. They thought she was too focused on her career, not fit to be a mother. They wanted custody of Oliver, and not just because they cared about the boy. Victoria held controlling shares in several companies through her late husband's estate. If they got custody of Oliver, they'd have legal grounds to challenge her control. 2 months ago, David explained, someone tried to grab Oliver from his school. We increased security after that, but tonight I noticed we were being followed. I pulled into the diner hoping a public place would make them back off. He looked down at the sleeping child. I was wrong. Detective Rodriguez made notes, her expression grim. And these men tonight, you think they were working for the father's family? I know they were, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. A woman stood there, and Lisa recognized her immediately from the news. Victoria Crane was tall and elegant, with dark hair pulled back in a bun. She wore a business suit despite the late hour, but her carefully composed expression cracked when she saw Oliver asleep in David's arms. She rushed forward, and David gently transferred the sleeping child to her. Victoria held her son close, breathing in the scent of his hair, her eyes closed. When she opened them again, they were bright with tears. Thank you, she said to David. Her voice shook slightly. Thank you for keeping him safe. Then she turned to Lisa. And you? You called the police. You helped protect my son. She looked around the diner, taking in the overturned chairs and the general chaos. I'm so sorry this happened in your restaurant. It's not my restaurant, Lisa said automatically. I just work here. Victoria studied her for a moment, then glanced at Amy still asleep in the booth. Your daughter? Lisa nodded. She comes here after school. I can't afford a sitter. Something shifted in Victoria's expression, but before she could say anything, Detective Rodriguez cleared her throat. Miss Crane, I need you to come to the station and make a formal statement. And I need the name of your ex-husband's brother and any other family members who might be involved in this. Victoria nodded. Of course. David, can you bring Oliver to the car? I'll follow you to the station. As David stood, Oliver stirred and opened his eyes. He looked around, confused, then saw his mother. Mommy? I'm here, baby, Victoria said softly. Everything's okay now. Oliver rubbed his eyes. The man with the scar tried to take me, but David stopped him, and the lady called the police. He looked at Lisa. Thank you, lady. Lisa felt her throat tighten. You're welcome, sweetheart. Oliver then turned to look at the booth where Amy was sleeping. Is that your little girl? Yes, Lisa said. That's Amy. She was brave, Oliver said seriously. She didn't cry or anything. She just watched. Victoria smiled sadly at her son. Come on, honey. We need to go talk to the police and then we'll go home. As they headed toward the door, Victoria paused and turned back to Lisa. What's your name? Lisa Martinez. Lisa, Victoria repeated. I won't forget what you did tonight. I'll be back to thank you properly. She looked around the diner again. When do you work? Every day except Sunday, Lisa said. Morning shift and evening shift. Victoria's eyebrows rose. Both shifts? Lisa shrugged, suddenly embarrassed. Bills don't pay themselves. Victoria opened her mouth to say something, then seemed to think better of it. She nodded once and left with David and Oliver. Detective Rodriguez stayed behind to finish her notes. You did good tonight, she told Lisa. Those men were dangerous. If you hadn't called when you did, this could have ended very differently. After everyone finally left, Lisa locked the door and flipped the sign to closed. She gently woke Amy, who was groggy and confused. Is it over? Amy asked, rubbing her eyes. Yeah, baby. It's over. Come on, let's go home. As they walked the 3 blocks to their small apartment, Amy held Lisa's hand tightly. Mommy, why did those bad men want to take that little boy? Lisa thought about how to explain it in a way a 7-year-old would understand. Sometimes adults fight about things and kids get caught in the middle. But the important thing is that the little boy is safe now. Because of David, Amy said. And because of you. You called the police. That's right, Amy was quiet for a moment. Mommy, is it hard being a single parent? The question caught Lisa off guard. Why do you ask that, honey? Because David is a single parent too. He told Mr. Peterson while they were waiting for the police. He has a daughter. She's 12. Lisa hadn't known that. She thought about David, about the way he'd protected Oliver, the gentleness in his voice when he comforted the frightened child. She thought about doing all of that alone while also working a dangerous job. Yeah, Lisa said softly. It's hard sometimes. But we manage, don't we? Amy squeezed her hand. We do good, Mommy. Lisa smiled, her heart full despite everything that had happened. Yeah, baby, we do okay. But as they climbed the stairs to their apartment, Lisa couldn't stop thinking about Victoria Crane's expression when she'd learned that Lisa worked double shifts every day. There had been something in the CEO's eyes. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. Whatever it was, Lisa had the strange feeling that tonight had changed something, that the threads of her life had just gotten tangled up with people who lived in a completely different world. She wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a scary thing. Maybe it was both. The next morning, Lisa arrived at the diner at 6 to start her shift. Her boss, Joe, was already there inspecting the overturned furniture from the night before. "Hell of a night you had," he said. "You could say that." Joe set a chair upright. "Police called me. Told me what happened. You okay?" "I'm fine. Amy too." He studied her for a moment. "You did the right thing calling them. Protecting that kid." Lisa started setting up the coffee machine. "Anyone would have done the same." "Nah," Joe said. "Not everyone. Most people, they see trouble like that, they hide. They don't get involved." He paused. "Your job's safe here, Lisa. Whatever happens with this situation, you don't need to worry about that." "Thanks, Joe." The morning rush came and went. Lisa served coffee and pancakes and eggs the same as every other day. But she couldn't stop replaying the events of the night before. The fear in Oliver's eyes, the cold threat from the gray-haired man, the way David had moved, fast and precise, always protecting. At 10 o'clock, the bell above the door chimed. Lisa looked up from pouring coffee and almost dropped the pot. Victoria Crane walked in with David and Oliver right behind her. Oliver lit up when he saw Lisa. "It's the lady from yesterday," he said, tugging on his mother's hand. Every customer in the diner turned to look. Victoria Crane wasn't the kind of person who usually showed up in places like Joe's diner. She stood out in her designer clothes and expensive shoes, but she didn't seem to notice or care. She walked straight to the counter where Lisa stood frozen. "Good morning, Lisa," Victoria said with a warm smile. "I promised I'd come back to thank you properly." "You didn't need to do that," Lisa managed to say. "Yes, I did." Victoria glanced around the diner. "Is there somewhere we could talk privately?" Part 3, they ended up in Joe's small office in the back, which was really just a closet with a desk and a filing cabinet. Lisa felt awkward in the cramped space with Victoria Crane, a woman who probably had offices bigger than Lisa's entire apartment. David had taken Oliver to the counter, where Amy had appeared from the storage room where she'd been doing her homework. The two children were already talking, comparing the stuffed rabbit with Amy's backpack that had cartoon characters on it. "I'll get right to the point," Victoria said, sitting down in Joe's worn desk chair. "I want to thank you for what you did last night. You didn't have to get involved, but you did. You put yourself and your daughter at risk to help my son." Lisa shifted uncomfortably. "I just called the police." "That's all?" "That's not all," Victoria said firmly. "Those men threatened you and Amy. You had every reason to stay quiet and hope they'd just leave. But you didn't. You stood up." She paused. "David told me you work double shifts here every day." Lisa felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I do what I have to do. How much do you make in a week? If you don't mind me asking." "I do mind," Lisa said more sharply than she intended. "Look, Miss Crane, I appreciate you coming by, but I don't need charity." Victoria smiled, but it wasn't condescending. It was understanding. "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering opportunity." She leaned forward. "I run a company with over 5,000 employees. We have 3 cafeterias in our headquarters building. The manager of our executive floor cafe is retiring next month. The position pays $70,000 a year, plus benefits including health insurance and a childcare stipend." Lisa's mind went blank. $70,000. That was more than she made in 2 years at the diner. "I can't," she said automatically. "I don't have experience running a cafe. I'm just a waitress." "You've been working in food service for how long?" "Almost 10 years. And you work double shifts, which means you know every aspect of running a restaurant. Open to close. You know inventory, you know customer service, you know how to handle difficult situations." Victoria's expression softened. "Lisa, I built my company from nothing. I understand what it means to work multiple jobs, to sacrifice everything for your say. Hild, I'm not offering you this position because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering it because I think you'd be good at it and because I want good people around my son." That last part caught Lisa's attention. "Around Oliver? I'm enrolling him in a new school. Better security. It's near the company headquarters." My plan was to have him at the office cafe after school where I can check on him between meetings. Victoria glanced toward the door, toward where the children were talking. Your daughter goes to Lincoln Elementary, doesn't she? How did you know that? I asked David to look into it. I hope that doesn't bother you, but I wanted to know more about the woman who helped save my son. Victoria folded her hands on the desk. Lincoln Elementary is a good school. The school I'm enrolling Oliver in is right next door. They have a partnership program. If you worked for me, Amy could transfer there. The child care stipend would cover after-school programs, or she could come to the cafe with you, just like she comes here. Lisa's head was spinning. This was too much, too fast. I need to think about it. Of course, take all the time you need. Victoria stood and pulled a business card from her purse. This has my direct number. Call me when you're ready to talk. Lisa took the card, the paper thick and expensive between her fingers. Why are you really doing this? Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. When Oliver's father died, his family told me I should give up the company, focus on being a mother, as if I couldn't do both. As if being a good mother meant giving up everything I'd worked for. She met Lisa's eyes. You work 16 hours a day to take care of your daughter. You're doing both too. I respect that. And I want to make it a little easier if you'll let me. After Victoria left, Lisa stood in the office for a long moment, staring at the business card. Through the door, she could hear Amy laughing at something Oliver had said. David's deeper voice joined in, gentle and amused. When Lisa finally went back out, she found the three of them sitting in a booth. Amy and Oliver had their heads together, drawing on napkins. David sat across from them, keeping watch but with a relaxed expression Lisa hadn't seen the night before. He looked up when she approached. Everything okay? Yeah, Lisa said. Just a lot to process. Victoria can be intense, David said with a slight smile. But she means well. And she doesn't make offers she doesn't mean. Lisa slid into the booth next to Amy. So you're a single dad? David nodded. My daughter Sophie is 12. She's at school right now. It must be hard doing what you do with a kid at home. It is, David admitted. But Sophie's tough. She's had to be. He paused. I heard Victoria's offer. Are you going to take it? I don't know. It seems too good to be true. Maybe it is good, David said. Maybe you should let yourself have that. Over the next few weeks, Lisa thought about it constantly. She talked to Amy, who was excited about the possibility of going to a new school with Oliver. She talked to Joe, who told her she'd be crazy not to take the opportunity. She even talked to her mother, who lived 2 states away and rarely called. You've been struggling for 3 years, her mother said over the phone. Ever since that worthless man left you. Maybe it's time to stop struggling. During those weeks, Victoria came to the diner regularly. She always brought Oliver and David. The children would do homework together while Victoria and Lisa talked, sometimes about the job offer, but more often about other things. Their kids, their struggles, their dreams. Lisa learned that Victoria's marriage hadn't been happy, that her husband's family had never accepted her, that she'd been fighting to prove herself worthy since the day she'd started dating their son. Victoria learned that Lisa had always dreamed of opening her own restaurant, that Amy's father had left when he found out Lisa was pregnant and never looked back, that Lisa sent money to her younger brother every month to help him through college, even though it meant she sometimes skipped meals. David was there through all of it, quiet and steady. He and Lisa started talking more, about their kids, about the challenges of single parenting. Sophie came by once, a serious 12-year-old with her father's careful eyes. She took to Amy immediately, treating her like a little sister. One evening, exactly 4 weeks after the incident, Lisa was closing the diner when David came in alone. Victoria's with the kids, he explained. I wanted to talk to you privately. Lisa's heart started beating faster. About what? About why you haven't given her an answer yet. David sat at the counter. You're scared? I'm not scared, Lisa said defensively. Then she sighed. Okay, maybe I am. This kind of thing doesn't happen to people like me. Good things don't just fall into your lap. They do sometimes, David said. And when they do, you should grab them. He was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? 6 months ago, I was working security at a factory, 12-hour night shifts. Sophie was alone every night, having to take care of herself. I was barely making enough to cover rent and food. Then Victoria offered me this job. Better pay, better hours, actually using my training. I almost didn't take it because I thought it was too good to be true. Why did you take it? Because Sophie deserved better. And because sometimes you have to trust that good things can happen. He met her eyes. Amy deserves better too. That night, after tucking Amy into bed, Lisa sat at their small kitchen table and really looked at her life. The apartment with its peeling paint and broken heater. The bills stacked on the counter. The exhaustion that had become so constant she barely noticed it anymore. Then she thought about Amy doing homework in the diner every day because Lisa couldn't afford anything else. About the clothes from the thrift store that Amy never complained about, but Lisa knew she noticed. About the birthday party, Amy hadn't been invited to last month because Lisa couldn't afford to send her with a gift. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on Victoria's card. Victoria answered on the second ring. Lisa? I'll take the job, Lisa said. If the offer's still open. It is, Victoria said warmly. It absolutely is. I have conditions, though. Name them. I want to earn it. No special treatment. If I'm not good at the job, you tell me. And I want to pay Amy's school costs myself, even if it takes me a while. Victoria was quiet for a moment. You remind me of myself 10 years ago. Too proud for your own good. Her voice softened. But okay, you'll earn your position, though I have no doubt you'll excel at it. And we can work out a payment plan for Amy's school. If that makes you feel better, it does. Then welcome to Crane Industries. Lisa, I think this is the beginning of something good. Part 4. Lisa's first month at Crane Industries felt like living in a different world. The executive cafe was nothing like Joe's diner. Everything was sleek and modern, with expensive coffee machines and a menu that featured things like quinoa bowls and artisan sandwiches. The customers were executives in tailored suits, not truck drivers and construction workers. But people were people, Lisa discovered. They wanted their coffee hot, their food fast, and someone to remember their usual order. She learned the rhythms of the place, figured out the rush hours, got to know the staff she was now managing. Amy had transferred to the new school and was thriving. She and Oliver were in the same class now, and they'd become inseparable. Sophie often picked them both up after school, bringing them to the cafe where they'd do homework while Lisa worked. It was like having a family, Lisa thought. A strange, unexpected family, but a family nonetheless. David came by the cafe almost every day. He was head of security for the building now, and his rounds always seemed to bring him past Lisa's domain right around lunchtime. They'd talk while she made his coffee, their conversations easy and comfortable. You settling in okay? He asked one afternoon about 6 weeks after Lisa had started. I think so, Lisa said. It's different from the diner, but good different. Sophie really likes Amy, David said. She's been asking if we can have her over for dinner sometime. Lisa smiled. Amy would love that. She talks about Sophie constantly. David hesitated. Maybe you could come too. I mean, to dinner. All of us together. Before Lisa could answer, Victoria appeared at the counter. Lisa, do you have a minute? They went to Victoria's office, which had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Lisa had been there a few times now, but it still took her breath away. I wanted to tell you that you're doing an amazing job with the cafe, Victoria said. Employee satisfaction scores are up and the board members have been raving about the food. Thank you, Lisa said. I'm really enjoying it. Good. Victoria sat on the edge of her desk. Because I have another proposition for you. We're opening a new facility across town. It'll need its own cafe. I want you to design it from the ground up. Menu, layout, everything. Lisa felt excitement bubble up in her chest. Really? Really? It would be your project. Of course, you'd get a raise for the additional responsibility. It was everything Lisa had dreamed of. A chance to create something from scratch, to use all the ideas she'd been collecting for years. That evening, as Lisa was closing up the cafe, she felt like her life had finally turned a corner. Amy was happy the job was amazing, and maybe, just maybe, there was something developing with David. She'd said yes to the dinner invitation, and they were planning it for Saturday. She was so caught up in her thoughts that she almost didn't notice the man stand ding by her car in the parking garage, but when she did, her blood ran cold. It was the gray-haired man from the diner, the one who'd been arrested 3 months ago. Ms. Martinez, he said pleasantly, as if they were old friends. We need to talk. Lisa's hand went to her phone in her pocket. Stay away from me. I'm not here to hurt you, he said, raising his hands. I'm here to warn you. You've gotten yourself involved in something you don't understand. I understand that you tried to kidnap a child. We were trying to save him, the man said. Victoria Crane is not who you think she is. She's dangerous. And now that you're close to her, you're in danger too. I'm calling security, Lisa said, pulling out her phone. Wait. The man took a step closer. Ask yourself why a CEO worth millions would suddenly care about a waitress. Why she'd give you a job, pay for your daughter's school. People like Victoria don't do things out of kindness. They do things because it benefits them. Get away from my car. Your daughter is in that school with Oliver Crane. Think about that. If something happens, if there's another attempt to get the boy, Amy will be right there in the crossfire. That hit home, and the man saw it. He pressed his advantage. I'm out on bail pending trial. I came here because I wanted you to know the truth. Richard Crane, Oliver's uncle, he's not the villain. He's trying to protect his nephew from a woman who cares more about her company than her own son. That's not true, Lisa said, but her voice shook slightly. I've seen her with Oliver. She loves him. Does she? Or does she love what he represents? Control of his father's estate. Billions of dollars in assets. The man shook his head. Ask yourself this, why did those men follow David and Oliver to your diner that night? It's because Victoria deliberately sent them there, to that specific place, knowing it would create a scene, knowing you'd call the police. It made her look like the victim and destroyed Richard's custody case. You're lying. Am I? Ask her. Ask Victoria why she really hired you. Ask David why he really talks to you every day. You're not their friend, Ms. Martinez. You're their insurance policy. A witness who can testify about the terrible things Richard's people did. He started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and that new facility she wants you to design? It's across town in the warehouse district, isolated, far from the main office, far from protection. Think about why she wants you there. Lisa stood frozen as he disappeared into the parking garage. Her hands were shaking and her mind was racing. None of what he said made sense. It couldn't be true. Victoria was her friend. David was, well, he was becoming something more than a friend. But doubt had been planted, and it grew as Lisa drove home. She thought about how quickly Victoria had offered her the job. How convenient it was that Amy and Oliver ended up in the same school. How David always seemed to be around. When she got home, Amy was with Mrs. Chen from next door, who watched her for an hour after school until Lisa got home. Mommy, Amy ran to hug her. Guess what? Oliver invited me to his birthday party next weekend? At his house. Can I go, please? Lisa hugged her daughter, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. The gray-haired man's words echoed in her head. If there's another attempt, Amy will be in the crossfire. We'll see, baby, Lisa said. Let me talk to his mom first. That night, after Amy was asleep, Lisa sat up late thinking. She tried to remember everything that had happened over the past 3 months, looking for signs that she'd been manipulated, looking for proof that the gray-haired man was wrong, but she couldn't shake the doubt. And in the morning, instead of going to work, she called Victoria's office and asked for a meeting. Victoria seemed surprised, but agreed immediately. When Lisa arrived, David was there too, which made her suspicion spike. Had they known she was wavering? Were they closing ranks? Is everything okay? Victoria asked, concern in her eyes. Lisa decided to be direct. Someone approached me last night. The gray-haired man from the diner. He said things about you, about why you really hired me. Victoria's expression hardened. What did he say? That I'm just a witness to make Richard look bad. That you're using me and Amy as insurance. Lisa forced herself to meet Victoria's eyes. Is it true? The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. David looked at Victoria, and something passed between them. An understanding, finally Victoria spoke. Yes and no, Lisa felt her heart sink. What does that mean? It means that having a third-party witness to the attempted kidnapping did help my custody case. It means that you being part of Oliver's life, your daughter being his friend, it does create complications for anyone who might try to take him. Victoria stood and walked to the window. But that's not why I offered you the job. That's not why I wanted you in our lives. Then why? Victoria turned around and there were tears in her eyes. Because that night in the diner, when those men threatened your daughter, you didn't back down. You could have, and no one would have blamed you, but you stood up because it was right. Because a child needed help. She wiped her eyes. I've been surrounded by people who want something from me my entire adult life. People who see me as a means to an end. When I met you, I saw someone who did the right thing without expecting anything in return. I wanted that kind of person in my life, in Oliver's life. What about the new facility? Lisa asked. Why is it across town? David spoke up then. Because it's our newest property and Victoria wanted to give you the opportunity to create something from scratch. But if you're worried about security, I can have a full team assigned there. Lisa looked between them, Victoria with tears on her face, David with concern in his eyes, and she realized something. The gray-haired man had been clever. He'd taken facts and twisted them, adding just enough truth to make the lies believable. I'm sorry, Lisa said softly. I shouldn't have doubted you. Yes, you should have, Victoria said firmly. You should always question when something seems too good to be true. You should always protect your daughter first. She walked over and took Lisa's hands. But I hope now you'll trust that this is real. Our friendship. This opportunity. All of it. Part 5, the attempted manipulation didn't end with the parking garage encounter. Over the next few weeks, Lisa received emails with articles about Victoria's business practices, phone calls from reporters asking about the diner incident, and even a letter delivered to her apartment offering her money to testify against Victoria in the custody case. Lisa ignored all of it. She'd made her choice and she trusted her instincts about Victoria and David, but she also took precautions. She varied her routes home, made sure Amy was never alone, and stayed alert. Detective Rodriguez had been keeping her updated on the case. The 3 men from the diner had been connected directly to Richard Crane, Victoria's late husband's brother. He'd hired them to grab Oliver, planning to take the boy out of state and claim Victoria was an unfit mother who'd let her son be kidnapped. It would have worked too, the detective told Lisa over coffee one morning. If you hadn't called the police, if David hadn't been there, Richard would have had Oliver and Victoria would have looked negligent. The custody case would have been over. The trial was set for the spring, 6 months away. Until then, Lisa focused on her work and her daughter. The new facility project consumed her creative energy. She spent hours designing the layout, developing a menu that would appeal to the tech workers who'd be based there. Victoria gave her complete freedom, trusting her vision. David's daughter Sophie had become a fixture in their lives. The 12-year-old was mature beyond her years, probably from having to grow up fast with a single parent. She and Amy were like sisters now, and Sophie had taken on the role of protective older sibling with fierce dedication. One Saturday, David invited Lisa and Amy to his apartment for the dinner they'd been planning. It was smaller than Lisa expected, comfortable and lived in rather than fancy. Sophie had helped cook, and the 4 of them sat around the table like a family. Dad, Sophie said during dessert, can I ask you something? Sure, kiddo. Sophie looked at Lisa, then back at her father. Are you and Ms. Martinez dating? David nearly choked on his coffee. Lisa felt her face heat up. Amy giggled. Because if you are, Sophie continued calmly, I think that would be really nice. Amy's great and Ms. Martinez is cool. Plus, it would be good for you to have someone, Dad. You've been alone since Mom left. David recovered his composure. Sophie, that's not really appropriate dinner conversation. Why not? You always tell me to be direct and honest. Sophie turned to Lisa. So are you. Dating? Lisa couldn't help but laugh. We're friends, Sophie. Friends who have dinner together every Saturday? Sophie raised an eyebrow, so much like her father that Lisa laughed again. Okay, David said, standing up. How about you two go watch a movie while I clean up? After the kids left, Lisa helped David clear the table despite his protests. I'm sorry about Sophie, he said. She's been asking about you a lot lately. It's okay, Lisa said. She's a great kid. You've done an amazing job with her. It hasn't been easy. Her mom left when she was 3. Just decided motherhood wasn't for her and walked away. David rinsed a plate, not looking at Lisa. I've been so focused on making sure Sophie didn't feel the loss that I haven't really thought about dating. About letting someone in. And now? Lisa asked softly. David turned to face her. Now I'm thinking about it a lot. If you're interested, that is. Lisa smiled. I might be interested. They started dating officially after that, taking it slow for the kids' sake, but building something real. Victoria was delighted when she found out, claiming she'd known from the start that they were perfect for each other. The trial came in April. Lisa had to testify about what she'd witnessed in the diner. It was intimidating, being in a courtroom with lawyers and judges and Richard Crane staring at her from the defense table. But she told the truth clearly and calmly, describing exactly what had happened. David testified too, detailing the threats against Oliver and the evidence linking Richard to the kidnapping attempts. Victoria's lawyers were thorough and professional, dismantling Richard's claims that he'd been trying to protect his nephew. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they came back, they found Richard Crane guilty of conspiracy to kidnap and child endangerment. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and the judge terminated any custody rights his family had claimed. Victoria hugged Lisa tightly when the verdict was read. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." 2 months later, Lisa stood in the new facility's cafe surveying her creation. The space was bright and welcoming, with modern furniture and a menu she'd designed from scratch. The grand opening was tomorrow, and she felt a surge of pride looking at what she'd built. Amy and Oliver ran through the empty space, their laughter echoing off the walls. Sophie followed at a more dignified pace, but she was smiling. David stood next to Lisa, his arm around her waist. "You did it," he said. "This place is incredible." "We did it," Lisa corrected. "All of us." Victoria arrived with a bottle of champagne to celebrate. They sat at one of the tables, the kids drinking juice while the adults toasted to new beginnings. "I have an announcement," Victoria said. "I've been thinking about expanding the cafe concept, not just in our facilities but as a standalone business. Lisa, I'd like you to be my partner. We'd start small, maybe 2 or 3 locations with you managing the operations and menu development." Lisa stared at her. "A partner? Like actually owning part of it?" 50-50 ownership, Victoria confirmed. "You've proven you can do this, and I trust you. Plus, it would be good for me to have business ventures that don't require me to work 80 hours a week. I want to spend more time with Oliver." Lisa looked at David, who was grinning. She looked at Amy, who was watching her with wide, hopeful eyes. She looked at this cafe she'd created, this new life she'd built from a single terrifying night in a diner. "Yes," Lisa said. "Absolutely yes." That summer, they took the kids to the beach. Victoria rented a house big enough for all of them, and they spent a week building sandcastles, swimming in the ocean, and staying up late talking on the porch while the kids slept. One evening, after the children were in bed, the 3 adults sat watching the sunset over the water. "Can I say something sappy?" Victoria asked. "Please don't," David groaned, but he was smiling. "I'm going to anyway." Victoria looked at both of them. "A year ago, I was fighting a custody battle alone. I was exhausted and scared, and I didn't know who I could trust. Now I have a family. Not the family I was born into or married into, but the one I chose. The one that chose me back." Lisa reached over and took Victoria's hand. "We're grateful you walked into that diner." "I'm grateful you were there," Victoria said. "Both of you." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the waves crash against the shore. Inside the house, Lisa could hear Amy laughing at something in her sleep. Her daughter, who was happy, who had friends and opportunities and a future that looked bright. David squeezed Lisa's other hand, and she thought about how far they'd both come. 2 single parents who'd been struggling alone, now building something together. Not just a relationship, but a partnership, a family. A year ago, Amy had asked if those men were bad guys. The answer had been yes, but that wasn't the whole story. The whole story was about what came after, about good people finding each other in the chaos, about second chances in chosen families and having the courage to trust when life offered you something beautiful. Lisa's phone buzzed with a text from Joe, her old boss at the diner. He'd heard about the new cafe business and wanted to congratulate her. She smiled, thinking about how that diner had been her whole world once, how small and limited her life had felt. "What are you thinking about?" David asked. "How everything changed in one night," Lisa said. "How scary and wonderful that is." "Would you go back?" Victoria asked. "If you could." Lisa looked at David, at the house where Sophie and Amy and Oliver slept safely. She thought about the business she was building, the dreams that were finally within reach. "Not for anything," she said. The sun set completely, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Tomorrow they'd go back to their regular lives, to work and school and the everyday challenges that never really went away. But tonight they had this moment, this family they'd built from courage and kindness, and the simple decision to do the right thing. Amy had asked if those men were bad guys, and Lisa had told her yes. But what she'd learned since then was that the more important question was, who are the good guys? And the answer was sitting right here beside her, in this chosen family that had saved each other in all the ways that mattered. Later, as Lisa tucked Amy into bed, her daughter looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "Mommy, I'm glad those bad guys came to the diner." "What? Why?" "Because if they hadn't, we wouldn't have met Oliver and Sophie and David and Ms. Crane. We wouldn't have this." Amy gestured around at the beach house, at the life they were living. "Sometimes bad things lead to good things, right?" Lisa kissed her daughter's forehead. "Yeah, baby. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they lead to the best things." She turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching Amy drift off to sleep. Down the hall, she could hear Oliver and Sophie talking quietly, the sound of friendship and family and safety. David appeared beside her, slipping his hand into hers. "Ready for bed?" "Ready for everything," Lisa said, and she meant it. Whatever came next, whatever challenges or joys or surprises, she was ready. They all were, together,